Alright everybody, so we're moving on to section 5.2, which now we're going to be starting to divide polynomials, because in the previous section we only added, subtracted, and then also multiplied, so now we're moving on to division, and today's key concept is we're actually using long division. So the first two though, you're just simply dividing by a monomial, so you're not really long dividing just yet, but if you have a polynomial like you see for number 1, that huge long thing, 6x to the fourth y cubed plus 12x cubed y cubed minus 18x squared y. The whole thing's being divided by 3xy. So all you're going to do for this one is you're just simply going to divide each and every single term by 3xy. So starting with the first one, I'm just doing 6x to the fourth y cubed. I'm going to divide that by 3xy. Then we have plus 12x cubed y cubed. We're dividing that by 3xy. And then minus 18x squared y is being divided by 3xy. So again, I'm just dividing each and every single term by 3xy. So we know how to do this, just dividing monomials by monomials. So the first term, if you divide, you would be left with 2. And then you'd have x cubed y squared. And then plus, when you divide the next term, you would just have 4x squared y squared minus 6x, and that would be it. So again, just dividing each and every single term by 3xy, and then just double check my numbers, check my x's and my y's. Yep, all looks good. All right, so same thing for number 2, it's just written differently. So 3xy to the negative 1 is really saying the same thing as dividing by 3xy, because if you remember a negative exponent, so 3x to the negative 1, if I want to make that positive, I just make this 1 over 3xy, which is now to the positive first, which realistically, again, we're doing the same thing. All you're doing is taking 18x squared y, dividing that by 3xy, plus you're taking 27x cubed y squared z, and now you're going to divide that by 3xy as well. So again, a negative 1 power is just division. That's all we're doing. It's just written differently. So if you divide each term by 3xy, you should get 6x here, because the y's would cancel, plus 9x squared y z will be your final answer. So again, you're just basically reducing it down, division, right? Now, here's the long division part. So when you're dividing a polynomial by a polynomial, okay, other than just a monomial, so if you're dividing by just a monomial, you just divide each and every single term by that monomial, but long division now is a little bit different. Okay, it's the same exact steps though, even back in elementary school, when you had something like 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say divided by 5. Okay, same exact idea. This is long division. So you're just asking yourself, 5 goes into 12, how many times? So it goes in twice, and then you're multiplying 2 times 5, that gives you 10, and then you subtract, you get 2, and then you bring down the next term, and now you're dividing again. So 23 divided by 5, that's going to be 4. 4 times 5, that's 20, and now I subtract, I get 3. I bring down the last term, and now 34 divided by 5, 5 goes into 34 6 times, so 6 times 5, that's 30, subtracting, you get a remainder of 4, or you can write your remainder like this, it's a fraction, 4 over your divisor, which is 5, so 246 4/5. Okay, so same exact idea here. So going inside the box is x squared plus 3x minus 40. And we're dividing this by x minus 5. Okay, so now dividing from left to right. Same exact approach, like I said. But the kicker here, when you're dividing by the binomial x minus 5, you're really only dividing by x each and every single time. So when I go from left to right, I'm first dividing x squared. So my first term is being divided by x. Well, x squared divided by x is 1x. And again, once you know what goes on top, just like we did over here, once I knew that 2 was on top, then I just took that 2, I multiplied 2 times 5, I got the 10, and then you're just going to be subtracting. Okay, this is the only time that you're going to factor in that whole binomial of x minus 5, because once you know what goes on top, you're going to multiply x times x, and that gives you x squared. And now I'm also multiplying x times negative 5. I get negative 5x. And now I'm ready to subtract. Okay, so again, once you know what goes on top, you're going to multiply by both of them. You're doing x times x, then x times negative 5. Okay? The first terms when you subtract, they always cancel, because x squared minus x squared is just nothing. They cancel. But now be careful because you're doing, change my color so I can highlight this, you're doing 3x minus negative 5x. So you're subtracting a negative, which really then you're just going to be adding. Okay, we're doing basically 3x plus 5x, that gives you 8x. You bring down the next term, and now you're dividing again. And again, you're only dividing by x. From left to right, what you're dividing next is 8x, and you're dividing that by x. Well, 8x divided by an x would just be 8. The x's would cancel. And now you're multiplying again. So once you know what goes on top, now you just multiply 8 times x. That's 8x. Also doing 8 times negative 5, which is negative 40. So again, multiplication, multiplying both terms by 8. And now subtracting. Okay, we did the multiplication. Now we're just subtracting. Like I said, the first terms always cancel. 8x minus 8x, those are gone. But now what you're doing is you got negative 40 minus negative 40. Well, that's negative 40 plus 40, which in this case then, these would also cancel, and you have no remainder. So your answer would just be x plus 8. That's it. Okay, and the whole point of this too, if I were to take those two binomials, if I take x minus 5 and I multiply it by x plus 8, if I FOIL these two together, I should get that trinomial of x squared plus 3x minus 40. So we're basically trying to find the other factor. Okay, basically we knew that x squared plus 3x minus 40, it factored into an x minus 5, but the other factor was x plus 8. So again, if you FOIL these two together, you'd have x squared plus 8x minus 5x minus 40, and then combining like terms, you get x squared plus 3x minus 40. So like I said, that was our dividend. That was what went under the division box, was x squared plus 3x minus 40. Okay, so it's always a way to check your work too. If you're not sure about your answer, if you multiply them back together again, you should have that original trinomial that was your dividend. Okay, so same thing for the next one. Inside the box, we would have x squared minus 13x plus 12. And we are dividing this by x minus 1. And again, I'm only dividing by x, okay, from left to right. So starting with x squared. So x squared divided by x, that's x. And now you multiply. So x times x is x squared. Also multiplying x times negative 1, which is negative 1x. And now you subtract. Okay, so once again, you multiply both terms by what goes on top. So x times negative 1. And now subtracting. X squareds are gone. And again, be careful for this next part. You're doing negative 13 minus negative x. So negative 13x minus negative 1x. Well, that's negative 13 plus 1. And negative 13 plus 1 is negative 12x. You bring down the next term, and now you divide again. Okay, so now I'm dividing negative 12x by x, which is negative 12. Once you know it goes on top, now I'm going to multiply negative 12 times x, negative 12 times negative 1, so that I'd have negative 12x, and negative 12 times negative 1 is positive 12. Now I subtract. And like I said, first terms always cancel. And in this case, when you subtract 12 minus 12, again, there's no remainder. So my answer would be x minus 12. Okay, the next one. So again, just written differently for this one, a squared plus 7a minus 11. So for this one, what I'm going to have inside the box would be a squared plus 7a minus 11. This is being divided by, I'm going to rewrite this though, so that 3 minus a instead, in standard form, it should be negative a plus 3. Okay, but that's my divisor. That's what I'm going to be dividing by. So from left to right, again, I'm doing a squared. I'm going to divide that by negative a, which is negative a. Multiplying negative a times negative a is positive a squared. Negative a times 3 is negative 3a. And now we're set up to subtract. So once you're done multiplying, you multiply both terms by negative a. Now you just subtract. First terms cancel. And again, for the next part, you're doing 7a minus negative 3a. So that's really 7 plus 3. So 7a plus 3a gives you 10a, and then drop down the next term. And now you're dividing again. So now I'm doing 10a divided by negative a, which would be negative 10, right? Because the a's would cancel. And now I'm just multiplying negative 10 times negative a, which is going to be a positive 10a. And negative 10 times 3 gives me negative 30. And now when I subtract, the a's would cancel. And now we are going to have a remainder for this one. So what we would get, we have negative 11 minus negative 30. So that's negative 11 plus 30, and that's going to be positive 19. Okay, so to write your remainder, to write your answer, what you're going to have, since it is a positive, it's going to be plus, and now my remainder is 19 over your divisor, which is negative a plus 3. And that whole thing would be your solution. Okay, so let's try the next one. We're moving on. Inside division box this time, we got 20x squared minus 13x plus 2, and now we're dividing this all by 4x minus 1. And again, we're only dividing by 4x each time. So from left to right, if you have 20x squared, you divide that by a 4x, you would just have 5x. And again, multiplying both terms now, so 5x and 4x is 20x squared. 5x times negative 1 is negative 5x. So I multiply both terms, and now I'm set up to subtract. Again, first terms cancel. So now subtracting negative 13 minus negative 5, negative 13 minus negative 5x. So that's going to be negative 13 plus 5. That gives you negative 8x. Bring down the next term. Now divide one last time. So I'm just dividing negative 8x by 4x. So negative 8x divided by 4x is negative 2. The x's would cancel. And now multiplying negative 2 times 4x, that's negative 8x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. And now when you subtract, these cancel, these also cancel, so there's no remainder. So answer is just 5x minus 2. Okay, let's move on to the next page. So similar idea, obviously we're still doing long division, but there's something wrong with number 7. So if you notice, it jumps all the way from an x to the fourth to an x to, it's technically to the first power. So we have some missing terms here. Okay, if you jump from one exponent all the way down to a much smaller one, there's terms missing in between. You have to fill those in with zeros. So you can't just jump from one to the other. So what do I mean by that? So underneath my division box, what I'm going to have, starting with x to the fourth, right? But again, we skip from 4 all the way down to 1. So we have to fill in our x cubed and our x squared term. So my next one to follow in order would be the 0x cubed, the 0x squared. Now it picks up with a minus 5x the first, plus 10, and now this whole thing is being divided by x plus 3. And again, we're only dividing by x each time. Okay, so again, any missing terms that you have, so same thing for the next one, number 8. If you notice, it jumps all the way from an x cubed to an x to the first power. So you're missing some terms there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, coming back to number 7, starting to divide. So again, just from left to right, x to the fourth divided by x is x cubed. And then multiplying, you'd have x to the fourth plus 3x squared. I'm sorry, 3x cubed. And now I'm set up to subtract. So first terms cancel. And now subtracting, we got 0 minus 3. So that's going to be negative 3x cubed. And now you bring down the next term. And now you're dividing again. So from left to right, now I'm dividing negative 3x cubed. I'm dividing that by x. So that's negative 3x squared. Multiplying would give me negative 3x cubed. That would be a minus 9x squared. And now subtract. First terms cancel. Okay, so we're subtracting. We got 0 minus negative 9. Well, that's 9x squared. Because again, we're just adding there. Minusing a negative, we're really just adding. Bring down the next term. And now divide again. So now I'm dividing 9x squared. I'm dividing that by x, which is 9x. Multiplying would give you 9x squared. And then 9x times 3 would give you 27x. And now subtract. Again, first terms cancel. So when you subtract, you got negative 5 minus 27 here. Well, that's going to be negative 32x. And now bring down the very last term. You're dividing one last and final time here. Okay, this is a pretty big problem altogether. But now one last time, negative 32x is now being divided by x, which is negative 32. And now I'm multiplying. So negative 32 times x is negative 32x. Negative 32 times 3, let's see, that'd be negative 96. And now, subtracting one last time, we obviously have a remainder here. So the remainder is going to be, again, I got 10 minus negative 96. So it's 10 plus 96, so I get positive 106 as my remainder. Okay, so how I want to write this, again, once you have a remainder as a fraction, since it is positive 106, it's going to be plus 106 over your divisor, which is x plus 3. And there's your final answer. Okay, that big nasty looking thing. Okay, and for the next one, like I mentioned, we do have a missing term. We're jumping from x cubed all the way to x the first, so we do have missing terms. But if you notice all these numbers, 25, 30, 40, 5, and 10, you could even reduce everything down right now if you wanted to, dividing everything by 5. So inside my division box instead, and filling in my missing term, I'm going to have 5x cubed plus 0x squared plus 6x plus 8. And I'm going to divide that by 1x plus 2. Again, I'm only dividing by x each and every single time. Okay, so again, just double checking my numbers real quick. See, 25 divided by 5, that is 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 40 divided by 5 is 8. That'd be 1 and that'd be 2. Okay, so now we're good to go. So go ahead and start dividing. Even if you don't reduce it down from the very beginning though, you still get to the same exact answer in the end. So don't worry if you don't reduce it, you still get to the same answer. It's just the remainder that we have left over would have to be reduced. Okay, which I can talk about that once we get to it. But go ahead and start dividing again, just from left to right. 5x cubed divided by x would be 5x squared. And now multiplying, that'd be 5x cubed plus 10x squared. So again, I'm multiplying both terms by 5x squared. First terms cancel as they always should. And now I'm just subtracting 0 minus 10, so that's negative 10x squared. I bring down the next term, and now I divide again. So now I'm dividing negative 10x squared by x. So that would be negative 10x, multiplying negative 10x squared minus 20x, subtracting, first terms cancel. And now be careful, again, this is 6 minus negative 20, so that's 6 plus 20, so 26x. Bring down the last term, divide one last time now. So once you bring down that last term, you're only dividing one more time. We got 26x divided by x, so that's positive 26. And now 26 times x is 26x. 26 times 2, that'd be 52. And now subtracting. First terms cancel, and now doing 8 minus 52, that should be negative 44. Okay, so we got a remainder, so as my remainder here, since it is negative, it's going to be minus 44 over our divisor, which is x plus 2. So like I said, if we didn't reduce it now, basically our remainder, once we had left over, that would have to be reduced at the very end. Okay, so otherwise you get to the same exact answer, even if you don't reduce, not a big deal. All right, moving on to the next one, long division. So double check, make sure you have no missing terms. Looks good to me. We got x cubed, we got x squared, we got x the first, it's all in order. So now dividing, so 2x cubed minus 10x squared plus 1x minus 5 goes inside. We're dividing this by x minus 5. And again, we're only dividing by x. Okay, so from left to right, here we go. 2x cubed divided by x is 2x squared. Multiplying, you'd have 2x cubed minus 10x squared. And now subtracting, first terms cancel, as they always should. But now negative 10x squared minus negative 10x squared. Well, that's really just addition then. Negative 10 plus 10, that gives you 0x squared. You bring down the next term. Okay, doesn't mean you're wrong. You just want to keep going with the problem even if you get 0 partway through. That's okay. Okay, so now I'm dividing 0x squared. I'm dividing that by x, but that would just be 0x, because that 0 divided by anything is still going to be 0. And now multiplying, you still have 0x squared. 0x times negative 5, well, that's just going to be 0x. And now when you subtract, these don't matter anyways, but this is where you get your term back. So you have 1x, you're subtracting no x's. So you're still going to have 1x Bring down the last term, divide one last and final time. So x divided by x is just going to be 1. And now multiplying 1 times x and 1 times -5. When you go to subtract, these cancel and these do as well. Okay, so your answer, you could keep it like this, or you can also say it's just 2x squared plus 1 as your final solution. Okay, so if you don't want to put that 0x in there, then you don't have to. But there's no remainder here. Number 10, two things wrong with it. First of all, it's out of order. So if you notice, you got x squared first and then x cubed following. They have to be in order. And we're also missing a term in this one too. So it goes from x cubed to x squared, and then you're missing your x the first power. Okay, so setting this up, inside we'd have 2x cubed minus x squared plus 0x plus 25. And now dividing this by x minus 3 by long division. All right, here we go. Again, you're only dividing by x. So 2x cubed divided by an x is 2x squared. And now multiplying gives you 2x cubed minus 6x squared. And now subtracting, first terms cancel. And again, we're doing negative 1x squared minus negative 6x squared. So negative 1 plus 6 gives you 5x squared. Bring down the next term and now divide again. So 5x squared divided by an x, it's 5x. Multiplying, get 5x squared. That'd be minus 15x. Subtracting, first terms cancel. And now we're doing 0 minus negative 15. So 0 plus 15, so that's 15x. Bring down the last term. So again, just dividing one last time here. Okay, 15x divided by an x is 15. Multiplying, 15 times x is 15x. 15 times negative 3 is negative 45. And now subtracting, first terms cancel, but now I got 25 minus negative 45. So 25 plus 45 is what we got, which will be 70. Positive 70 will be your remainder. So again, how you write this as your remainder is going to be plus 70 over your divisor, which is x minus 3. And there you go. Okay, there's long division. One thing I want to point out though with your answers, so my dividend, what I'm dividing each and every single time, if you notice, so we start off with the next cubed here, right? Your answer is always 1 degree less, x squared. Okay, so that should kind of help you when it comes to your actual division. You should always have 1 less degree in your solution. And then it just gradually goes down from there just naturally. So you have x squared, then you have x the first, and then no x's followed by your remainder. Same thing for this one. Again, we started off with 2x cubed, but if you notice, my answer is x squared, followed by x the first, followed by no x's, followed by your remainder. Okay, each and every single time, this is what should happen. If we come up here again, this is 5x cubed. Answer starts with x squared, followed by x, no x's, all the way down to the remainder. Same thing here, we had x the fourth. My answer, 1 less, is x cubed, followed by x squared, followed by x the first, just going down one after another. Okay, so if you get kind of stuck with where you're at or what the next one's going to be, you can even look at your solutions. So look at these clues. This should kind of help you with your division. Okay, or even if you get lost, you can always kind of make up a problem, just kind of a simple elementary school type problem, because realistically it's the same exact steps as you did back in 4th and 5th grade. Okay, when you first started doing long division, it's the same exact steps. So just take your time with it, and that's long division. Thank you.